Hello and welcome to Memories of a Musician. I am your host, Vito DeSalvo, and I'm bringing you this show live from my home in Naples, Florida. On Memories of a Musician, I plan to cover my musical journey as a music educator, musician, composer, producer, music director, and music business entrepreneur. In addition, each episode will feature a special guest. Are you looking forward to hearing the stories of many successful musicians? Tune in every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Memories of a Musician will be streamed live on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. In the event you would miss an episode, each one will be recorded and archived for future viewing. And here we go. Good evening. Welcome back to Memories of a Musician. We have a great show for you tonight, and this is going to feature a very close friend of mine and a colleague, Fred Danchenko, who we taught together at the West Mifflin Area School District. Fred, I consider to be, if you remember the last three episodes, all three guests were members of We Three. Fred, of course, is not a member of We Three, but I consider Fred a classical musician, an orchestral musician, and an expert really on the history of music, and the depth of his knowledge is unbelievable with regards to the composers and compositions and so forth, the history around them. So what we're going to do is, before I bring Fred on, one of the big moments for me and it was kind of a double-edged sword. I loved conducting the orchestra, and I had the orchestra at West Mifflin South, West Mifflin North, and West Mifflin area at different points. And then I developed in 1986 a music technology program that grew. It was growing by leaps and bounds, and I needed to have more attention to that program and teach more classes. And so I had to give up the orchestra at some point, and I did. And Fred was teaching in the elementary school, elementary music. And he was the obvious choice because of being a classical musician and his orchestral experience. And of course, he was a string bass player, double bass. So I brought Fred up, and I handed the baton over to Fred for the high school orchestra. This is West Mifflin Area High School, after we had combined the two schools. And he took that orchestra program all the way through until he retired. But it was a hard moment for me because I loved doing the orchestra. And I remember, so in 1981, I had a really talented student on trumpet in the high school orchestra. This was at West Mifflin South High School. And his name was Tom Beckovac, and he played the trumpet, and I wanted to feature him on something. Now, you may remember last week when we did this show and I had Greg Grenick as my guest, I mentioned that Greg was the person who introduced me to the music of Chuck Mangione. And Chuck Mangione at that time had one album, and it was called Friends in Love. And it was Chuck with his group of jazz musicians and the Rochester Philharmonic, Rochester, New York, because Chuck was an Eastman music student, music graduate. And so I absolutely fell in love with that music. And the first cut on the album, I think it was the first cut, was a song called The Hill Where the Lord Hides. And I just loved the whole format of that piece and how it developed and the melodicness of the whole piece. So I decided, I didn't want to give Tom Beckovac a classical piece to play. I didn't want to give him a pop tune. So I decided to write something. And I wrote a piece called The Legend of Los Ojos Triste, which means the legend of the sad eyes. And this is for full orchestra. But unfortunately, I don't have a recording of my high school orchestra playing that. At that time, we didn't have the kind of technology available readily anyways. So what I did was I took a group of musicians. A lot of them were music teachers in West Mifflin, and some were in my group. And so we went to a recording studio, I remember in Shadyside, and we recorded this song, The Legend of Los Ojos Tristes. And it featured the trumpet player that I used was, a colleague of mine. We were teaching together at West Mifflin. He was at North and I was at South, but he was the trumpet player. It was Ed Ansack was his name. There was the late Bob Graham. He was also a music teacher in West Mifflin. He played bass for us. Dale Hertrick was an alto sax player whom I knew quite well because Dale had played in We Three until he left to go off on the road, I think, with the Guy Lombardo Orchestra. But Dale played alto sax on this recording. I had Bill Finn, who was at that time a teacher in West Mifflin, and he played acoustic electric guitar. And John Flaherty, John was a graduate of West Mifflin North High School, as well as his brother Mark. Both were terrific musicians. And John played electric guitar. And then I had Ken Delvecchio was my drummer with We Three at that time, so I had Ken playing drums. John Orsini was my sax player and vocalist in We Three, and he came in and played percussion, primarily congas. And then, of course, I played piano on this recording. So we had this recording, and I have an interesting picture before I play it. One last thing. This is a picture, of course, of Chuck Mangione. And you'll see that he signed it for me. And the story with this is kind of interesting. I was on the road with a vocalist from Naples, Italy. His name was Patrizio Buone. And we were doing a show in New York City. I don't remember the venue, but it was right near Columbus Circle in New York City. And I, of course, had to hire some horn players because at that time, this was a little later, we used to have our own touring band, but at this point, I would just take the rhythm section and I would get horns in the city that I was in. So I ended up getting a trumpet player, and the trumpet player was the music director for Chuck Mangione. And in fact, the first time I called him, he was in Warsaw, Poland. They were doing a show there. And I asked him if he could do this show with me in New York. And he said he'd be back and he would be able to do it. So we had rehearsal one day, and I talked with him, and I said, must be a real kick to be working with Chuck Mangione all the time. And he says, yeah. He says, Chuck lives right down the street from here, right around the corner. I says, any chance you can get a picture and have him sign it for me? He said, oh, yeah, I'll stop in and see him tomorrow, and I'll bring it tomorrow when we come for sound check. I said, great. So he comes in the next day, and he hands me this picture, and it says, for Vito, thank you, and signed it Chuck Mangione. And he says, I told Chuck, I said, I'm working for this music director down the street. He says, on a show, and he said, he asked me to get a picture signed for his name is Vito. He said, we better sign that for Vito. So that was kind of the story with that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to now play for you. I'm going to play for you The Legend of Los Ojos Tristes. I can find it here. There we go. And this is edited. This is not the whole piece because it starts with just the flugelhorn at the beginning, and then the rhythm section comes in, and then it's edited down. But eventually, if you want to hear the whole piece, it's not up on the internet yet, but in the next couple of days, it'll be on my website, vitodesalvo.com. All the memory of musicians, everyone that's on the show is going to have a page on my website. And so here we go. Legend of Los Ojos Tristes. hope you enjoyed that. The Legend of Los Ojos Triste. Ed Hansack playing trumpet there. Dale Hertrick alto sax. It was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun putting that together. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Fred before I bring him out here on the program. Fred Danchenko has enjoyed a fulfilling, varied music career spanning 40 years as a performer, music educator, and choir director. Fred's lifetime of musical experiences began at West Mifflin North High School as a string bassist, where he graduated in 1980. During this period, Fred was greatly influenced by performing with the Pittsburgh Youth Symphony and various Pennsylvania Music Educators Association orchestras. He then continued his education at Carnegie Mellon University, where he graduated in 1984 with a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Performance on the string bass. He quickly established himself as a symphonic bass performer with the Pittsburgh Opera Orchestra, Westmoreland Symphony, Wheeling Symphony, and as principal bassist of the McKeesport Symphony. Highlights of this time include performances with Luciano Pavarotti, performing at Carnegie Hall in New York City with the CMU Orchestra, and as a freelance musician, performing the master works of the symphonic and operatic repertoire. Fred completed his master's equivalency in music education and Pennsylvania teaching certification in 1987. He was then employed by the West Mifflin Area School District in 1990 until his retirement in 2021. He may have had the singular distinction of teaching every grade from kindergarten through 12th grade. I gotta say, he probably did if he taught kindergarten, because I taught every grade from first grade to 12th, but I didn't teach kindergarten. He particularly enjoyed his assignment as orchestra instructor to beginning string students through their graduation. A favorite moment was conducting from the high school orchestra pit while his daughter Nina and her future husband Nick performed together on stage in the Broadway musical Oklahoma. Fred has also conducted the music of the Russian Orthodox faith, primarily at Holy Virgin Orthodox Church in Carnegie for 20 years, and for the past 3 years has been the choir director at St. Nicholas Orthodox Church in Homestead, Pennsylvania. Upon retiring in 2021, he founded the West Mifflin Area High School Alumni Chamber Strings. They perform regularly in the community. He also works part-time as a sales representative for Progressive Music Company. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the program Maestro Fred Danchenko. Well, hello there, Fred. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing wonderfully. Buonasera, Vito. It's a pleasure, an honor to be a guest on your show, your new endeavor, or your latest endeavor, I should say, and also to be able to enjoy with my wife, Rebecca, your wonderful hospitality. You know, the DeSalvos have a history of having beautiful gatherings with people and treating us so well. So it's great to be here.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you. It's great to have you and Rebecca as well. It's been a lot of fun. So let's get started let me ask you, what got you into music? What was your passion? What was the real passion that got you fired up into the music world?
You know, Vito, from the youngest age, I can remember having a connection with music. And whether it was listening to Beatles' 62 album, and I started to make instruments, like a guitar out of wood, and I would draw the strings with a crayon. I put it together. I'm playing along and pounding on Charlie Chip cans. My first band actually was called the Cats. Back around the time I was about 6 or 7. And it was nurtured by, I was in a musical family. We sang on a choir in church. My father sang baritone, my mom sang alto. My sister sang soprano. And So I was a so-called tenor, but my passion, one of my earliest passions, was for music of the church. I would listen to, there was an Our Father on a recording that I would listen to over and over again. Before I could read, I remember putting a scratch on the record so I knew it was on that side. And that continued. But I did have a big wow moment. And it happened at a junior high school PMEA, Pennsylvania Music Educators concert, when instead of being in a small school group of maybe 15, 20 students, all of a sudden I was on stage with 100+ orchestral students. And I'll never forget, we were playing in the Haydn D major symphony, and it took 3 notes. I heard bam, bam, ba ba, and this full sound and the full colors of music, and this whole world opened up to me, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Yeah. That's great history, huh? Well, that's understandable, because especially when you're sitting on stage with a full orchestra,
Yeah.
and you hear these moments with the orchestra, it's just incredible. So, I have a little clip of you playing a bass solo, and it's from a Haydn Symphony number 8, I believe, in the third movement. So I'm going to play this and I've actually I've edited it down so that we hear just the solo sections that you're playing, but also I included a few photos in there, which I'll have you explain at the end of when this is over. You can explain those. Let's play this little There you go. Nice. So tell me about those 3 pictures, Fred.
Okay. Well, first of all, Vito, I'd like to thank our good mutual friend, Matthew Littorini, who was able to repair. There was a cassette that was broken. And I said, Matthew, there aren't very many solos for a bass orchestra, please. And I want to thank him. And I know he's going to be a future guest on your show.
Yes, he is. Yes, Matthew will be on the show. French horn player. He's quite a distinguished, retired educator now, but still plays. Yeah.
And so thank you, Vito. Thank you to Matthew. Well, the first picture was very special, with all the hair, the curly hair, and the bell-bottom pants. Yes, that was the first day that I had a string bass delivered to my house, and it was done by my. I was very fortunate at West Mifflin. My teacher, orchestra teacher, was a bass player, Philip Slaw, and I started with him in 7th grade, and every day instead of going to Bonnie Bishop's general music class, he gave me a bass lesson. But I wasn't tall enough to have an instrument at a full size.
Yeah, right.
So when I moved up to the full size instrument, Mr. Slaw delivered it to my house, and I brought it in. I was so proud, and I'm playing, and my sister came down. Said, I got to take this picture. And so that's the first one. And then we go forward to Carnegie Mellon. When I was there, I loved to go outside and practice. The Fine Arts Building is so ideal, especially like in spring. I'd go out there and do the scales, and I'm like in harmony with the elements, And one day I was out there practicing, and a photographer came by. and she was doing a brochure for Carnegie Mellon Music Department. So she took that picture, and she also had me walk back and forth in front of the Fine Arts Building, holding the bass over my head.
Wow.
And yeah, exactly. And that was the picture that made the cover of the brochure.
Oh, nice.
So that was so cool. So that's how that picture. And then the other one, I believe my daughter Nina took that, and that's actually from the pit at one of the high school musicals. And again, after I took over, after you, and we'll get into that. But that's what I'm standing there, and I must have a girdle, and that's a skinny picture. So
Yeah.
that was the best one I could do.
All right, Fred, tell me about this picture here. This is interesting. The instruments, the outfits, the
Absolutely.
uniforms, all right, the costumes, whatever.
Absolutely. Well, again, integral to my early music experiences, there was a balalaika group that was started in McKeesport by Father Dmitry Ermakov. Now, for those that aren't familiar, the balalaika is sort of the folk instrument, string instrument of Russia. So this is Russian music, and so it kind of goes just like a string group. The smaller the instrument, the higher the sound. So in this picture, we have my sister Daria is playing a primo balalaika. That's me on the far right, hair parted in the middle, I must say. Yeah, that's going by the wayside. And my wonderful, and my cousin Walter, the handsome guy on the left, and he played the big bass balalaika. So you have to think of that instrument multiplied so that it's so big that it had an end pin, and he's standing up and he's playing. He's playing the instruments, and we did so many wonderful gigs with Father Ermakov. And again, it sort of tied in with my love for Russian music and our background. And you can see we're wearing our blouses, and we did a lot of gigs, and it was a great time.
Yeah. Do you have any idea of when that balalaika? First of all, wasn't that used in that movie?
Dr. Zhivago. Thank you. Absolutely. Yeah, I meant to mention that if you recall the movie Dr. Zhivago, Yuri's mother played the balalaika. And there's a spotlight on it in the corner, and you softly hear the sound of the balalaika playing. And so it's really integral to that story. And it was carried around the train stations. It was their instrument that they could play. And I was fortunate enough to be in an ensemble and a director, and he would sing in Russian. He would do the folk songs, and actually Walter would even soloist with the group then, and did a wonderful job. And it was a great time for us.
It's not far different from of course in Italy we have the mandolins,
right?
And of course Serbian have the prims. They're all very similar, right?
That's correct.
Yeah,
that's absolutely. And actually, the ensemble also had mandolins playing the highest part above, and there was an accordion. We had an accordion, and Father's daughter Martha played the accordion, and we went to gigs all over the place and played outside of Renzihausen Park, and it was a wonderful way to grow up and to be connected, and again, it further brought along my just love of performing.
So this, don't forget, this is leads me to your experience with conducting the Russian choir, because I read it in your bio, and I'm a little bit familiar with when you worked in Carnegie with that choir there, and because of the recordings and so forth. So here's a picture, and it looks like we're in someone's living room, right?
That is correct.
How that happened?
Sure. Well, it's a great story. Well, first of all, Vito, if it weren't for you and Lana did the layouts for our recording. See, I went to you and I said, Vito, I have this wonderful group I'm proud of, and I want to make a recording now. I'd like to do something a little professional and special. And he says, I got you. And you took over from there. And so we got things all set up in the church in Carnegie. And we started, and as a matter of fact, you had your sound man, Ed Dukestein, was running sound, and he was there, and we're in there, and all of a sudden, as we start to rehearse, we start hearing the rumble of trucks outside. And it was so frustrating. And like, oh no, what are we going to do? And maybe a train. The train probably sealed the deal. This wasn't going to work. And my wonderful friend and the best man at my wedding, Mark Homiak, said, "Well, let's go to my house." And in Cecil Township, and I was like, oh, and then we started to think, and he says, well, and lo and behold, this is in his living room at the time, and we're all set up here, and this is and singing. This is part of the rehearsal, and Vito, you're there with Ed, and eventually Kathy Esterberg took over with doing this, and we were able to, and the funny thing is, everything was going fine. We thought until Ed all of a sudden starts to hear the sound of this, I think that the satellite from the airport.
Little bleep. He said, "What's that?" And he goes, "Wait a minute." He says, "I'm hearing this bleep," and my ears I always thought my ears were pretty good, but he heard
Right.
bleep, and it was the radar for the planes coming into the airport, because Cecil is not far from the greater Pittsburgh International Airport. And so that was a little bit of an issue, but way minor compared to what we had downtown Carnegie.
We also had to unplug the refrigerator. We had to unplug the refrigerator, and it turned out to be a wonderful acoustic. And our group, we were able to make 4 recordings with and then later our last one, Tim Milko, we did a live of a church service. Yeah, Tim came in and did the performance at the church, and that was done live for the 100th anniversary of the church. Okay. We kept it. Yes, it was a.
Play a cut. I have two tracks from that recording. The first one I'd like to play is called "Bless the Lord." So while we have this picture up, I'm going to play this. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. Let me see here. Hang on. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, blessed art thou, O Lord. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, and all that is within me. Bless His holy name. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, and forget go. Okay. Now, I'm going to remove this picture. I'm going to give you this one. And this is the same day and the same setting, just a different angle here, seeing the guys. And one of the things I'd like to, bring out to you, for those, there are a lot of musicians that tune in to watch the show, but even non-musicians, is that the Russian choir never had accompaniment like an organist or a pianist or anything like that. It was always a cappella, right?
That's correct. It was thought that instruments were associated with pagan rituals, and that was a big no-no, and they wanted the purity. And as a result, an art of singing developed in Russia, and musicians a style of singing in the churches, and this happened in most of the Orthodox churches as well. So I will use a piano for rehearsal purposes only. So it really puts a strain on the musicians, because everything I'm giving a pitch with a C tuning fork. I'm dictating it to each section, and they have to hear the pitch and come in on their individual notes. And if anyone's sung with a choir, it's the most difficult type of singing, really.
I'm going to play the clip called "Heaven and Earth." You want to explain what that is?
Absolutely. Also, very much a part of the tradition is the having a male chorus singing in this kind of a Russian Cossack style. And so in this particular, you're going to hear it sung in Neboisium, sung by a male choir. And I was, again, very much influenced by this male sound, like from the Dawn Cossacks. And my father loved to see, he would sit and listen to the Dawn Cossack records. And I would hear all this beautiful music. And I was greatly affected by it. So it even chokes me up thinking about it, because it was this love that it was imparted to me from my dad. And I was hearing these wonderful sounds. And even when I was a young kid, I'd be in the basement and I would be conducting along. You know, I would pretend, you know, when I was 10, 11, that I was the director. And so that was always in the back of my mind. And then as I was in college and I was doing freelancing and I was working on my certification, all of a sudden a position opened up in Carnegie for a choir director. And I'm really too busy to do this. But, you know, I went in one day, so come in, this is sub a little bit, come meet the people. And I met the people. And then they took me across the street to the Ukrainian club. And that kind of sealed the deal. And we had so much fun working, and I made it work within my schedule. And so in this clip, you're going to hear in a truly, I told them to sing like Russian Cossacks.
Okay, here we go. Very nice.
You know, and before we move on, Vita, I would like to mention that actually that we made a Christmas recording was done with the McKees Rocks Choir. So we augmented, we put two choirs together, and we also there were selections of 4-part soprano, alto as well, and that was a wonderful working with another group again, and just the joy of putting together into it. That was a Christmas recording. And before I forget, I want to send a hello and a shout out to my present choir, St. Nicholas Carpathia Russian Orthodox Church Choir, and they're such a devoted group. It's a pleasure, and they love a challenge, and they're real perfectionists. They really work very hard, and they're very dedicated. And I want to say hello to basically all of the choir singers who come to church with a job, versus those who can go in. They don't have a chance, and they barely have a chance to light a candle or say a prayer. When it's like, hey, places, everybody, let's go. And you have to be alert on a Sunday morning when you're doing the services, and I'm giving these pitches, and you have to, and it's a dedication, and they don't have a chance to reflect inside the in a pew, and it's that dedication that really makes it special.
So no Russian parties Saturday night, right?
Well, try to minimize that.
Yeah. All right, Fred, look at this picture here. This is amazing. Your high school orchestra after you took over for me. I'm thinking this is several years in, but you have quite a full group there. And what would you like to say? Anything about this group? I don't have a recording here, but I also have a couple pictures that I want to share of the chamber string group. So you maybe want to talk about both.
Okay. Well, first I'd like to say that Vito, you were the one that kept the orchestra in West Mifflin. You were the one that was insistent on giving strings a chance. You know, we've discussed that. And you won because it was so important to you. And as wonderful as the band, the ensembles are, they're fantastic. You know, having a full orchestra, again, a full sound, having students an opportunity to choose an instrument that they prefer. And a lot of students played band instruments. I mean, I played tuba also in high school for Ed Hansack, as a matter of fact. Mm-hmm. So you gave me the opportunity, and you founded the chamber strings. And that was something that I inherited from you. And I didn't think, otherwise, I don't know if I've ever would have done it. I would have thought, oh my, getting a group, these kids are so busy. Okay, this picture, getting on to this is the chamber strings playing at the Pennsylvania PTA state. This was their state convention. I was very proud of this group. We played. We were selected to play, and it was a high mark. And we had superintendents from all over the state, and our superintendent at the time was very proud to walk into the ballroom and to hear the group from West Mifflin playing chamber music. And also, we always dressed up, always in the back, and the formal attire. These kids over the years would, learned about that. And you see, and they took great pride in what they do.
Sure, absolutely. Look at this picture here, Fred. This is gorgeous. I love this.
That's the PPG Winter Garden. And later, I guess mid 2000, from 15 or on, that's where we performed. I was looking for a venue to have the group play, and Sally Schoenberger at a PMEA convention mentioned PPG, and this hall was absolutely fabulous. You have to picture this; it's so large, and I would always get the weekend right before Christmas. And again, this happened as the orchestra grew in size from when you had it, and the chamber strings grew in size, and sort of it became a thing to do. And we had to have gigs, and this was, and the parents would come down, and this room, you can't see the rest of the hall, which is very large, would be full of people right before the weekend before Christmas, and they were coming in, and they were just to hear live music. And it was filled with people. And when I would turn around, when I would look back, I could see basically about 80 or 100 yards, this massive atrium. Okay. And the Christmas trees, gingerbread houses, decorations, and the festive atmosphere really made it for just an idyllic place to perform.
Yeah. Just the word, I remember that's such a beautiful setting to play. Kids, I mean, for them to experience that. I remember when I had the chamber strings, we would get down to the county courthouse and play. But there was they had it decorated nicely, but it was such a kind of a dark, grim kind of like atmosphere because there was a lot of wood and marble and different things. It was nice, but it wasn't like quite as nice as this. So then you after you retired, you started a alumni chamber group, and I do have a little clip to play. You want to say what this is?
Well, yeah. First of all, I'd like to thank Kevin Squires, who's a former. He played viola, and Casey, his sister. I ran into them at the high school upon my retirement, and we just started talking. Wouldn't it be nice just to play a little bit again? Boy, those were the days, chamber strings after school and, all the gigs. And boy, it'd be nice to play again. And that was the start of it. And Kevin, who is now president of the West Mifflin School Board, and he's my administrator. And if anything artistic is needed, Casey's right there. And we have a group, and we get together twice a month, and we perform in the area. And it sort of varies depending upon, it's really neat. We got in touch with a lot of players, and they sort of come in like, I'm sorry, Mr. D, I'm going to go for my master's now. I'm going to Slippery Rock, and I can't play right. So it's sort of, it's an open group. And that's an invitation to any alums. The word gets around. We rehearse at the Lebanon Presbyterian Church now in West Mifflin. We also perform services there too. We've done the Christmas services. And it's really very nice. And here's a kicker. If we go on a field trip, like we went to see the Pittsburgh Symphony together, we get to go to the bar together afterwards.
Different than if they were the high school group.
Or we celebrate after our concerts. We get to go rock bottom down, and everybody sits at this great big table, and they bring their spouses come along, and some of their parents too. I mean, Mr. and Mrs. Capuzzi come to the concert. Sonia plays. My daughter Nina plays in the ensemble. Of course, Casey and Kevin, and a lot of. And I want to mention Nicole Thomas. She's my concert master. she's really in charge of that. Nikki is absolutely fabulous. And basically, what's nice is I just said, Nikki, how are you supposed to do that? How are you supposed to play that? Not being a violinist.
Just a little aside, I started Nikki on violin when she was in about 6th grade. So she was my concert master in my high school orchestra when I had it. So
getting to this gig, getting to the clip here, this is an outside performance. It's West Mifflin High School. You'll recognize it was for the Mon Valley Arts and Heritage Festival in 2023. And so we're kind of crammed on the stage. It wasn't the most comfortable venue, but we made it work. And to show our versatility, we're playing Van Morrison's Moon Dance.
All right, here we go. Let's see it. That was fun.
Yeah, it's a toe tapper. It's just and people don't expect to hear that. We could go from Pachelbel to, I love to do that. And,
I'm sure they enjoy playing that too. It's a lot of fun. It's a little nice deviation from the Bach Brandenburg,
Sure.
So as we move on, I have to tell the audience that I brought you into my recording studio at one point. I don't remember the exact year. I had written 6 more Italian style songs, waltzes, tangos, and a tarantella. And these 6 songs, I decided rather than score them with my band, with We Three, and do like a full-blown thing, I decided I wanted to hear them just with almost an unplugged a guitar, accordion, and bass. So I brought you, and I brought another good friend of mine, Dale Sinsky, who was a great guitarist and played with me on a tour band for 4 or 5 years around the United States. Dale plays guitar, and you're playing bass. Most of the time, pizzicato. But I'm going to play a clip where we used actually 2 of these songs. I scored a film called That's Amore. I did the whole music score, and it's the opening when they show the credit of the production company. It's called, I think, Little Italy Productions. It's a piece from a waltz that I wrote called Piccolo Passo, and then the opening scene of the movie uses the tarantella Campobasso, with you playing on both of these songs, and just accordion, bass, and guitar. So, and I didn't use the whole opening scene. I used part of it because I wouldn't make too long. But I'm going to play this so we could get to hear this. And by the way, the 2 actors, the 2 male actors in the movie, were also the executive producers of the movie. And they're going to be on the show in a month or so down the line. That would be Dave Petty and Joe Puglisi. Both of those guys are going to be on the show. They literally produced this movie. So here's a little clip in the opening scene.
She said that.
When my invisible invisible.
Hey, Angela. How's it going today?
Great, Lucia. Your order's almost ready if you want to go ahead and take a seat.
Oh, I think I'm going to use the ladies' room if that's okay.
Of course, it's all you. I'll give you a call when your order's ready.
Awesome. Keep the change. Oh, by the way, my mother said to say hi.
Oh, she's so sweet.
Yeah, to you. Hey. Excuse me, ladies. Sorry, pardon me. I'm sorry. Hey.
Of one of our favorite films. So I've been telling people all about this thing because it's one of these things like.
So that's the clip. I want to say one other thing about this movie, just because some people may be seeing this for the first time. Maybe they don't know this movie exists. The movie is kind of like a comedy and romantic movie at the same time. It would remind me very much of that movie Moonstruck with Cher. Remember that?
It's
So
cute.
kind of-
It really is. It's a lovely movie.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to see it, the main places to watch this right now, you can stream it on Amazon Prime, YouTube Movies, Tubi, or the Roku channel in Fawcett. It's available out there. It's for streaming. So I just wanted to let everybody know. So I have a picture, Fred, that I want to put up here. And this, when you retired in 2021, from the West Mifflin Area School District, there was a little retirement party for you in the area there. And at the end of the thing, we took a little picture. And this is the picture. You want to say who everybody is here?
Sure. Well, first, I want to say that the staff, we always pulled together. It's never easy, and all of the obstacles, and we had to work together and cooperate. And we didn't always agree about things, but we pulled together, and we were very proud of the work of the department. And before, I also want to say, Vito, if I have a chance here, how much of a mentor you were to me. When I was hired, and you brought me along. It was very intimidating to have to replace you. You know that. But the way you guided the department, you instituted music technology. You were on the cutting edge with that as well, and all these accomplishments and all the things that you fought for, and therefore we fought for, and we took great pride. And so there's a lot of pride here in this department. There's Ed Hansack there on the left, who again, when I quit the football team, when I was a junior, because my teacher said, you're going to use your head a better way. And so the very next day, Ed came in, he brought a sousaphone. He said, take this home over the summer and you can play marching band. And I had a blast. There's Tim Milko right next to him behind. And Tim does a lot of work for you, has done a lot of work for you.
Oh, yeah, for sure. He's going to be on the show, too, at some point.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Good. And there's Devin Smeal, who's the president department head. He's back here in a pink shirt, smiling there. And there's Melissa Prutz, who's on the course. There she is up there, and wonderful work.
She directs the musicals now too, right?
She directs the musicals. That's right, and she has the choruses there. And behind Melissa is Jeffrey Kesser, who now has our job, basically, Vito. Okay. So we passed the baton, and Jeff's he's doing a great job. He's really coming along. And then there's Binks, there's Binks Stanley, Craig Stanley, who also he is also West. I wonder how many are West Mifflin grads, right? Think about that. And I know Binks was Melissa,
right? Ed, and you and Tim. Everyone except Jeff and Devin.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Except Jeff and Devin. We were all West Mifflin grads. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, it was great. And we had a great department. Everybody did their job. Everybody worked together for the same goal. And that's for the kids to have a good experience and to have a good program. And that's what really counts, you know. And so I was very blessed to have a really good staff of teachers on that staff. I'm going to put a picture up here if I can find it here. Let's see. I may have to go here. Let's see. Here you go. Okay, so here's the deal. I have to eliminate one of these right here, which I'll do. And I'm going to bring a picture in, and you're going to tell me this was not just a picture of you and I and our friend Matt Litterini. Oh, geez, it's not loading for me. Anyhow, I had a picture of the three of us in my wine cellar in my home in South Park, and the reason that I had the two of you come and visit me was I was on my way within the next couple of weeks to Shanghai, China, to conduct the Shanghai Orchestra with an artist that I was music director for, and that was Georgia Fumanti. Georgia was originally from Tuscany, Italy, and currently lives in Montreal. And I went with her and went, and I spent about, I'm going to say about 11 days in China, in Shanghai with her, with Georgia, and rehearsing the orchestra. And I never worked with a professional orchestra. As many things that I had done in music, and I was a little intimidated to walk in front of and so I asked you and Matt to come because both of you had lots of experience with symphony orchestras, and I wanted to pick your brain a little bit about just the etiquette and the things that I needed to know and what to do, what not to do, and that sort of thing. So you guys came over and were a huge help for me. And when I did that concert, there was a picture I wanted to show you real quick. This was me conducting the Shanghai Symphony that day on the concert at the Shanghai Concert Hall. And there's Georgia and me at the end of the concert in the Shanghai Concert Hall. And that would reminded you a little bit of Heinz Hall. Like it was that era, that kind of architecture, a beautiful place. So I wanted to point that out to you. And then, of course, the last thing that I wanted to bring up was that you and I shared the stage together.
Yes, we did.
Playing for Luciano Pavarotti, huh?
That was absolute. What a time! I mean, Pavarotti was at the height of his like rock goddess, god status, and everybody was Luciano, and it was the Civic Arena, and we were both on the gig together. I didn't even know, and you were seated. How was it like to sit right next to him during the concert?
It was interesting. I mean, it was very, very. I learned so much. And it was just interesting because we had two rehearsals, I believe, one in the rehearsal hall at the Benedum, and one and then the next on stage. The next was on stage at the Civic Arena, which is where the concert was, right. And it happened to be his 59th birthday, and we remember the whole orchestra sang "Happy Birthday" to him on that concert. The Civic Arena was completely filled out. There was an empty seat. So it was amazing. And I was a stone's throw from sitting right in front of him there. And it was fun. I mean, it was a great experience. And I knew, of course, several of the orchestral members there, and it was fun. It was a great experience.
Vito, I'd like to share one additional memory with you, and that would be when you would produce the musical at the high school. And when we were done, there were many years that we were able to go to your house and enjoy your hospitality and talk about a party. After all the work that we did together, putting the show together and seeing it done and putting up with the kids and all this, putting out all the fires, And then that celebration when we would get to your place, and then I think I should have all the people that are listening that have been down in your wine cellar to do a little heart thing or a little wine glass if we were doing an interactive thing. Because if if you've been in the Vito in Atlanta's, their place in South Park, and it was just such a celebration, as you've had many celebrations at your lovely house. And I wish you your joys in your beautiful new home down in Naples. It just, guys, as a matter of fact, when we're done, I have my bathing suit on right now. I shouldn't tell the people back in Pittsburgh, because all I need to do is have a little cocktail and go right through the door, and he'll turn the lights on. And it's just so idyllic, folks. It's just, you want to do a show like should have been outside on it like 2:00 in the afternoon with a beautiful sun and the ducks and I'm still looking for an alligator.
Yeah, he doesn't show up too much, but he's there. So don't step into the lake. Fred, it was a great pleasure having you on and sharing your experiences and your journey with us and the audience of Memories of Musicians. And so I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And you have a great night in the pool over there, and I'll make sure you have enough cocktails. How's that?
Thank you, Vito.
Okay, good night to you, Fred.
Good night, Vito.
So thank you for tuning in once again, and we'll look forward to next week. We have a very good friend of mine who was the engineer for We3 for 16 years, and he engineered a lot of the recordings of We3 and many other recordings that we did in my studio. So Ed Dukestein is going to be here next week, and we have some really interesting guests coming up. So stay tuned. There'll be a lot of fun coming up. Thanks again, and have a great evening. Thank you for joining us this evening for Memories of a Musician. I hope you enjoyed tonight's show, and please share my show information with your family and friends. Be sure to tune in next Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn for another episode of Memories of a Musician.